تسعدنا دعوة سعادة الدكتور شمس الدين نجا، مؤسس ورئيس مجلس إدارة نجا للاستشارات الهندسية. فأهلا وسهلا بكم سعادة الدكتور.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. The presentation today will be mixed between Arabic and English. I have seen some people that are not Arabic speaking, so I'll try and mix between both. The presentation is focusing on the vision of 2030 by creating a vibrant society where we strengthen Islamic and national identity and also offer a fulfilling and healthy life. The first project we will be showing would be one project in Al-Khuzam, which again shows the vision of the 2030, again improving quality of life and how integrating livability and also lifestyle. I will show 4 projects today. The first project will be Khuzam project, second will be Obhor, the third will be Fursan also in Riyadh, and the Roshan project. For Khuzam, the project was intended to create a distinctive residential community to encompass a main park, which was by a royal decree to have a central park. We'll share that in a second, which will fall to introduce all of the national housing within that. The site is about 10 kilometers length. Existing is these existing developments which were already on site, and we'll talk about the connection. There was a decree, royal decree, to make one continuous park throughout the site. So what we looked at now, these are the existing developments. Okay. There was a vision to connect from the royal decree to connect a park. We looked at it holistically. We realized that it should be not only one connection, but connect the whole loop, closing the loop, basically. You have a sports boulevard on one side, you have Wadi Sulay from one side. From the other side, you have Wadi Hanifa. What we connected, we thought this could connect to King Salman's Wild Park, and then further down into Sports Boulevard, connecting to King Salman Park. So what we looked at is not only on our project, but how to connect the whole city together through our project. Basically, the beginning of the project was there is already a street on the east. This area was maintained by Aramco lines, so there was no build zone into this area. We had the development on both sides, which are in this yellow or this light color. We wanted to, there's already wadis cutting into the site, east-west, and we are going to be connecting a park running through the site north-south. Next. This has been the typical layouts of the kind of the mafruka or the same layouts which are happening in Riyadh, 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer, all of it with the center where the mosque is, and all of the streets are intersecting, which does not create a continuous life or connection between these different neighborhoods. And that was what, when we came on board, there was already another master plan that for the rest of the land, which was not yet approved. So what we thought of is how do we change that? Next. Looking at the old Riyadh, Daraiya and the layout of that, and when did this start to become the main layout of the neighborhood? So instead of creating these isolated neighborhoods, we thought, why not start to create this bit more organic in nature, tying into what we already have in the old cities of Riyadh, creating a bit more dynamic and connecting all of the spaces to become more livable. So instead of one mosque being one center of each neighborhood, why not connect the whole thing so that you can all, from one point, you can walk by bicycle, walk, and that get that kind of livability into the city. So this is what we already inherited, and this is what we were then proposing as a new vision for the new development. The park was then continuous through, which we propose is going to connect further north, connect south to connect with the South Boulevard, and then the wadis are already there. Connecting to the wadis, we created a bit more of this dynamic road, putting apartment buildings onto there. Because this is about 10 kilometers in length, we thought the park is going to be too big. On one edge also, it has a very strong edge because these were the existing development. So we inserted 4 nodes. Each node was supposed to have a different definition, which interrupts the park, creating a bit more interactive with the park so you don't get that very linear park as one. Next. These were then the main components of the plan. The central park, which again was royal decree. We have wadis, which are natural wadis cutting through. The urban corridors in the new development that we had, and these nodes which would, while everything was supposed to be in the Najdi or in that Salmani style, the nodes we thought can be iconic, can be something that can stand out to become something that you see within the park. So this is then the first component, which is the park. This is an overview of the park. On the edges of the park, the apartment buildings kind of steps down to the park with providing terraces that everyone can view that center park and becomes a main focal point for the city. The wadis were natural, so these were already coming in from cutting into smaller parcels, and these were respected, and we developed them in a more natural manner. These were the visions of how the wadis would work. For the urban quarters, because it's already have been cut by these wadis, we created a very organic nature connecting all of these, and from any point you can be 5 minutes into the center park. So the idea then is not anymore these isolated islands, but anywhere you can get by 5 minutes by bicycle, by walking, and get to your park and have a livable city. So this then became the vision, and these were then all of these nodes as developing within that central park. The nodes were then created as 4 different identities. The first node, which is node 1, is an arts and cultural node, the first one. The second one was a commercial node. The third one was a functional retail one. And the last one, which is closer to the airport, was intended to be a mixed use with hotels and all of that can serve into the airport. So the first one, again, had a concert hall, a theater, a library, exhibition center. This is a very basic vision of what that can be. The second one is a commercial node, which is again some mixed between commercial activities, malls, and also some smaller residential apartments just to activate these spaces. The third node was a retail node, also with components of residential to activate it, and also that helps interrupts that linearity of that park. The last one is a mixed use. These were hotels and some offices at the very end, as we mentioned, closer to the airport, serving the airport as an area. These are some of the renderings. This is node 1, and we can see the park at night. This is looking at from the other end, so you'll see it from this side. This is where the hotels and offices were intended to be. Another vision at night. These are the different nodes. Yes. What we did in the park, we thought we developed each different experiences within the park. We looked at about 12 different experiences. The first being a path, the second being boundaries, natural squares, mineral squares, canopies, theaters, library and workspace, exhibition, sports, market and mosque and F&B. So within the park, it's not just one park, but rather each one has its own definition. So for the first one, I'm going to run through them very quickly. So these are the passes, the definitions of the passes within the nature, and these were the kind of some of the references and some of the renderings that we created. These were also the boundaries, the edges with the park and with the wadis, and how to relate the people to the wadi. These were the natural squares, areas that people can meet and have spaces for them to activate and to work, whether they are using different slopes or flat, but by different definition can be well defined. Mineral squares, spaces that can just be, not necessarily very green, but open spaces for people to gather. These were canopies, and we're still in a very hot country. We need shade. The moment you have shade, you can allow spaces for people to sit down and to work and experience the outdoor. The theaters, creating, there is a little bit of slopes on the side. What if we create natural theaters? People can sit down and activate these steps in different times. Also areas for people to work. After COVID, people don't necessarily need to work in the offices. There can be areas for people to work outside. There can be sit down and read a book and activate these spaces as reading areas, not just as a library, as a park. It can also act as exhibition centers. Public spaces can be used for exhibitions. All sports. There was a lot of open areas within the park that are activated for people to use the spaces for activities for sports, for whether open areas running or actual basketball, volleyball. Next. Market areas. Within the extended areas, providing shaded in certain areas can provide open market spaces. Mosques and tree lines. F&B, outdoor F&B as an extension. What we looked into as an ideology for the Khuzam project was three important things. First was respect natural environment, respect social values, and respect regional identity. When we mean regional identity, we don't mean exactly copying the architecture, but understanding the language and how to implement that in the new architecture. So what we looked at for what is Salmani architecture, we looked into three components. We are going to be evaluating it in terms of urban planning, in terms of the built environment, and in terms of open spaces and public realm. For the urban planning, we looked at the cluster, massing, and the streets. For architecture, we looked at the opening, the articulation, and the materials and colors. For open spaces, it was intended to look at the softscape and the hardscape. I'm not going to go through this is a full detail study. I'm just going to give you glimpses of it. So what we did, we proposed some architecture, and we did not necessarily say don't copy that. These are intended for developers. We said, we want you to study wall patterns. You don't have to follow that, but do something. So if you go back one. So although we provided some references, we said, you need to look at strong geometrical forms. You need to look at reveals. You need to create some loggias. You need to create some wall patterns. And then we provided a reference, but the reference, the next one, is only there for guidance. So this is somewhat we expect people to produce. Next. Similarly, that has been done for all of the Salmani style, providing to the developers and contractors and people working on site, follow this, but don't use it specifically as is. Use vertical openings, use this order. This was a direction to help them to how to create that open space and so on. Next. Next. This has been done looking into the right colors. Next. This is also done for buildings, for apartment buildings, how to meet the park, using the reveals, monolithic mapping, the loggias, using native plans, wall patterns, vertical openings, and the color palette that works with that. That was then what we proposed for the city. And this is a view from these apartment buildings into the park. And some of them would be directly on the water park, some of them would be with commercial below. If I can run this video. This is a very short video for a couple of minutes, so you can get a sense of what this looks like. All right, so it's a nice video. I'll share it with you later. Okay, next. Quickly, I would run into, if you run through Obhor just as a quick reference, the same thing has been done on Obhor. This was another project, just very quickly. The same thing was, it was designed in a particular way, and then we came on to creating a continuous open space with residential apartment and villas. Next. This was the vision. Next. Connectivity. This is how we proposed versus this. This is how we looked at the overall massing, the center of green spaces. This is a wraparound. This is how one could create a 10 kilometers walkway. Next. This is the original plan that we received, and this is how we interpret it. Next. Same. The same thing has been done in a different character to create that language. Next. Next. Last one is for SAM project, also about 20 million square meters. The same development has been interpreted of how to tie into this life of openness into the city. So these master plans now is what's being implemented in most of the project by NHC. Next. Next. We'll skip those. Last project is a project for Roshan, which is next. Over here again, the same idea has been implemented of tying into the whole project to connect an urban spaces that, you know, they are all apartment buildings, but how to create this kind of old city-like, and how these buildings would work to create that kind of vibrant city-like. That, I think, is concludes the presentation in a sense of how we wanted to see that we can integrate a vibrant lifestyle within the city, and not necessarily creating these small islands, but rather integrating the architecture with nature and make the city more livable and walkable. Thank you very much.
نطلب من سعادة الدكتور غازي العباسي وسعادة المهندس أنس الحضور للتكريم.